the podcast about European Ultimate. I'm Ravi Vasudevan, joined here by Liam Grant and joined by our friend Sean Colfer from the Showgame. So first of all, Sean, welcome to the podcast. How you doing? How are things going in England?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm well. Things are going all right. I live in Wimbledon, and Wimbledon started today, so it's a lot busier around here than it has been recently. But I'm not in a car. I have power. I have stable internet connection.
Are you not in a Peugeot? I was thinking that was a really big Peugeot you're in.
Yeah, it's just roomy.
Should I say Peugeot?
That Peugeot is how you...
For all the Tories out there.
We need to get this nailed down. My French is clearly not that good, but Peugeot is how I'd say it. But no, I'm in a house, not a Peugeot this time.
Okay. For those who didn't catch the last episode, Sean was supposed to be here to preview the UKU season back then, but he was on holiday in a Peugeot. I can't even say it right, and I live in France, so he is here now. He's going to give us more of a kind of mid-season-ish update to what's going on there. We're going to talk about that eventually, but first, Liam, how you doing? How are things going with your new firefighter job and doing all your EMT shifts? You've been playing any Frisbee at all, or just working all the time?
Just working all the time, yeah. When I'm not working in the vaccinations, I'm doing the firefighter stuff on call a lot. And it's just very hard to get to Limerick, which is like an hour and 10, 15 minutes away from me, do training. I hope I will get one or two sessions in over the summer and hopefully some tournaments. But yeah, hard for me to wait. I've actually had loads of fires, which actually aren't that common around here. Usually we're doing like car crashes and stuff like that, but of lots of burning houses and stuff, which dare I say is fun. We all think it's fun as firefighters, but we had no casualties, so.
No casualties. Okay, that's good. Just a lot of property damage.
Yeah, that's fine. But no, how are you, Ravi?
I'm doing all right. I'm injured for the first time. The Frisbee season just started back up again, and managed to hurt myself. Tweaked my calf muscle, which I think is the same injury Tad Whistle did. So we're doing the same thing here in our master's age, coming back to play and hurting ourselves immediately.
Are you injured or are you just old? Like
those very similar things. I mean, I'm probably injured because I'm old. But yeah, it sucked. We were supposed to play the Swiss Cup this past weekend and didn't manage to do that. I played the weekend before, which was fun. We played with my team Rogue, which is a team of Geneva and Lausanne. We played against the Panthers from Bern, and we traded some universe point games with them. Then this next weekend, we're supposed to play Crazy Dogs and Free Speed. We did play Crazy Dogs and Free Speed. I didn't play those games, but my team did. They lost like 15-6, 15-8. It's a bit of a bummer. Part of the reason with that was, of course, because I wasn't there, but the bigger reason probably was because we were missing Nassimbe Vogel, who is the captain of our team, but is in Mexico right now because he wants to go play in the AUDL, and apparently he can't fly to the US because of COVID restrictions, but there's some weird loophole where he can go into Mexico for 14 days and then fly into the US, and then he can join the New York Empire for the AUDL. Apparently a bunch of disc golfers did this as well to go play at the Disc Golf Worlds this past week, from what I heard. So yeah, Nas, we were missing Nas this past weekend, and myself, and got crushed by some EuCF level teams.
Sean, you're pretty old as well. How are you? How's your body?
Injured. Yep, same thing. I've injured my car. I was saying to Ravi a little bit ago that I handle. It's all I do. I don't do anything else. And then my captain asked me to cut for the first time in years, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll give this cutting like a go. It's been a while. And the pull came in, and I was walking, and I was like, okay, I'm going to start running. Took first step, and my calf popped. It was like that. And I haven't played for a month, although I played on Saturday, and it's not too bad now. But yeah, no, first point of actually running, and I was injured. But then I am now also a master. I was 33 a couple of weeks ago, so age. I'm telling you, it's age. That's all it is.
Oh man, you still got your prime master's years. My prime master's years were taken away from me. I'm 35, so I lost like the year. I played one master's tournament when I was 33 and missed out. COVID took away my prime master's years. Now all these young kids like you are coming in and taking over.
Great stuff. Young kid, fantastic. I like the beginning.
In the masters world, 33-year-olds is the young kids. So.
Yeah, it's back in times of flat circle. This is great stuff.
Liam, you still got a couple years to go, right? Before you're going to be a master.
Yeah. I'm 30, so I guess 3 years, is it? I was born 91. Does that make me young? Still sounds young to me when I say it, 91. Yeah. I've been playing some Gaelic football, though.
Oh, yeah?
Because, sometimes I'm on call. I have to be so close to the fire station, and the Gaelic football team is right beside the fire station, so I've been doing that. and I was really bad. I thought the frisbee skills would like transition. I haven't played in like 12 years, but obviously I've been playing frisbee that whole time, and it's actually similar running and catching and jumping and stuff, but use the ball, and that's the ball bit was the hard bit.
Is it the ball bit that's the hard bit, or are you also out of shape?
No, I felt good running. Yeah. Kicking. So your kick scores, you're kicking from your hands kind of thing. That wasn't the best. And it's also a lot more physical. And I'm not bad at being physical, but you need to teach yourself how to do it again. Like, there's people like pulling on your jersey, there's people elbowing you, like trolling you. And I'm so used to not being a nice person. So like, I have to train myself to like give people a dig again. So yeah, no, it's fun. It's nice.
How is that? How is that transition going from, frisbee life where it's supposed to be a non-contact, respect the game, at least the way we play it in Europe. In the US, I think there's a lot more jersey pulling and crap, but especially in the AUDL. But how are things going with you with the Gaelic with that transition?
It doesn't bother me people doing it to me, but I need to teach myself how to do it. I haven't fouled anyone in like a game yet, and like really, you should be fouling people a little bit. Like, I have to teach myself how to like cheat and foul again, which is like the dark arts of the game, which is kind of completely acceptable. It's like almost like in basketball. Sometimes when someone's through and goal, like you take them down. You kind of do that, and I haven't been doing that. So yeah, no, it's fun. It's a good sport if you want to watch hurling or Gaelic football. There's a lot of similarities, I think, to Ultimate, in that you're often doing kind of match defense and like kind of zoning stuff, or like the tactics can be similar in ways. I think if you liked watching Ultimate, you'd like watching hurling or Gaelic football.
Yeah, I watched the hurling championship, I think, when I was visiting you in Ireland back in 2019. But you said the game was a really bad game. I couldn't tell if it was a good or a bad game, but you were like, oh, too bad, that was a shitty game. But yeah, it seemed fun.
I played Gaelic football at uni. So my family's all Irish, so I knew what was going on, but there was many people who didn't. And there was one lad there who...
Are they allowed to play that outside of Ireland? Is that legal?
But they play it. And there was one lad there who had come from the rugby team, who hadn't made the rugby team. And they were like, when you're tackling in Gaelic, it's more like shoulder barging and stuff. So just don't hit people. And someone passed me the ball, and as I turned, this guy had clearly not got the memo and full on dump tackled me. Extremely unpleasant.
Class. No, they have Gaelic teams all over the world, so they kind of do it as like Irish expats. But like Sydney, you'd have a Gaelic football team. New York. When I first saw, I tried out for Revolver or whatever. They're like open tryouts. Obviously, unsurprisingly, didn't make it, but like, you can go to them. It's a good thing to go to. But it was on Treasure Island in San Francisco, which is actually like in between Oakland and San Francisco, like on the bridge. There's a little island you can turn off. And I got there kind of early, and I was like, this is a Gaelic football pitch, because they have different goalposts and stuff. I was like, this is really weird. So Revolver for years were training on a Gaelic football pitch. They like rented it off the Irish lads. So yeah, there's. Do
they have like a world championship that Ireland just wins by default every year, or every 4 years or something, or doesn't really go that far?
They let New York and London enter in like the All Ireland championships, I think. And they usually get knocked out first round. So, but I think they do let them kind of play 1 or 2 games. I think it's only New York and London. Is
that like a UKU thing where they would let them play, but if they ever won one year, then they'd be kicked out the next year immediately?
They're never going to win. It's different because they're bad. We're good. Ireland's good. And we didn't colonize them. It's different.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so main bite of this podcast, we're going to talk a bit about the UKU season and what's going on. From what I know, things are going on the rest of Europe. People are starting to play. I don't think many official things have happened outside of this UKU event. I think the Austrian mixed nationals happened. We talked about that, I think, last time, that Ketchup Graz won that and are going to Worlds, I guess, if they take their spot. But before we get into that UKU season, I wanted to just mention, we published on UltiWorld last week that the EUF have posted a calendar for their events through 2022. So there's a couple things to note on that calendar. The EYU Cups that were supposed to be this year were supposed to replace the EYUC. They were going to have smaller events. Both of those got canceled. XEUCF, still hoping to be a huge event in Bruges later this year in September. Still not sure about that. We're recording this on Monday night, so maybe by the time this goes up, there'll be a new announcement as to whether or not that's going to happen or not. I know the Bruges City Council was supposed to meet late June and come to a decision, but I still haven't heard anything yet. I texted Boris van der Lok before the podcast started to ask him if he can give me any inside tips. So maybe he'll tell me something by the end of the episode. We'll see. But as of right now, it's still a decision at the beginning of July is what we know about that. Hopefully we'll have a nice return to Elite Ultimate party in Bruges together. Next year, they're going to have the EuICs in Herning, Denmark in March 17th to 20th. I know that they're struggling to get enough teams for that. I know France and Germany both decided not to let teams go. And then they said, hey, if you want, you can send your top club team. They just want like more teams to go, and it's supposed to be national teams. But France and Germany are both like very strict with their national federations, being like, no, if we can't really put a real national team together, we're not going to send a fake national team together. So that was their call. I do know that some other countries are putting stuff together, so I hope it happens. I think that Liam and I both had...
Why are France and Germany not sending teams?
I don't know exactly why they're not. I know that they aren't. I think it was probably I think for them, if there is, I know in France at least, I'm very familiar with that. If there's a national team, it has to be like a big official project that somebody's running. They have to give a proposal to the federation that they're going to be the coach. And I guess nobody did that for European indoors. And they're just really official federations of big countries. And they're just not willing to just let some people slap a team together. It has to be an official thing. I don't know, Sean, have you heard anything from the UK if they're putting teams together for this or not?
Yeah, people have already bid for it. Definitely the mixed one, I know, has been given to people, and I think the open one as well. But they've definitely been putting bids together. So that's
when you say given to people, yeah. Which people was it given to?
So it's somewhat similar to what Ravi was talking about in terms of people need to put a proposal together, and the mixed is two people who both play mixed for the mixed national champions. They've been national champions 4 or 5 times. Best mixed indoor club in the country.
And which club is that? And which people is it?
So it's Danger High Voltage, I think is the name.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So
they were there last time.
Yeah, they went
didn't
to
do very
Euros.
well, but they were there.
Yeah, they went to Euros.
Yeah,
so
UK are really bad at indoors.
It seems like it. It seems like it. We play tiny little pitches, so when you put us on those big European pitches, it doesn't look like we cope with it very well. But
I think you would have been worse on the small pitches.
I agree with Liam on that. You guys were playing, all trying to play regular Ultimate on an indoor, which is not how the good countries do it.
No, I bet it isn't. But yeah, I mean, people are bidding for it. So as far as I'm aware, UK will be sending teams.
Do you know what the open team who's bidding for that?
No, it's not anyone that.
It's not like Clapham or something that are trying to.
I don't think so.
All right. Okay, we'll see. Have you heard anything about Ireland, Liam? With this, anybody trying to go into this with the Irish teams? Were there any Irish teams at clubs? I don't think so. The indoor clubs.
Rebels said they wanted to go, and then they pulled out last minute. Do you remember?
Oh,
that?
right, that's right. Yeah.
So they'll probably do the same, I'm guessing. Like, imagine they love indoors, but they'll probably put them together and run away. I think the IFDA have kind of gone down the same road as France now, being very official and putting bids and coaches, and they probably won't let them send some fun, happy clappy team like they used to. So, which would be a shame. But I think Ireland would be good at indoors. They should. I hope they send some kind of team.
I mean, Ireland for beaches allowed sand job and whatever. Beach teams were allowed to that, so if they're like that for beach, they should be like that for indoors, right? I mean, but I guess this is national teams, not club teams. So
yeah, it has changed more recently. The IFGA, the people inside, are a bit more finger wagging.
We all know how much a fan.
Yeah.
Liam is of the IFDA and their rules.
Don't know if you can hear in the microphone, but I'm wagging my finger.
All right, so that's going to happen in March. Then there's the World Beach Ultimate Championships, which we've all known about for a while in Los Angeles in April. Then there's a new event, the EUF Elite Invite. So this is going to be, I guess, if the EuCF happens, they're going to take the top 8. This year it's going to be the top 8 from each division, and they're going to invite them to kind of this elite early season tournament. Because as we've talked about on the podcast before, the EUF is pushing a kind of 5-6 year plan to eventually try and have a kind of, instead of having just one regionals tournament for each, group of countries at the end of the season, have kind of a European season where the elite European teams will play a couple different events. Then some algorithm will kind of determine the number of bids that go there. So this is like kind of testing it out. And I think it's a good year to try something like this because it's going to be a World Clubs year. Probably the top 8 EuCF teams from this year will be all teams that will want to go to World Clubs next year. So to have a tournament in April where they're going to get to play against top talent, I'm guessing they'll be up for it, even if it doesn't matter for the for the algorithm. But what are your thoughts here, Liam? I know you're not a big fan of this idea in general to have a more official regular season, but having a nice elite tournament in April to look forward to.
I like the idea of an elite tournament in April because there's probably a lack of elite tournaments. I just don't know how that fits into like rankings or seedings or blah, blah, blah. But is this just like Bologna Invite? Is that what this is going to be? It sounds like this.
Yeah, this is kind of like an official Bologna Invite. That's what they're starting with. It's probably going to be in Bologna, I would guess.
Yeah, sounds like they just made Bologna Invite more official and trying to encourage it, which is good. I think there was a slot there for an elite tournament to happen, and maybe like there isn't such a focus on parties and stuff like that. So I'm fine with it as long as I just don't understand how it works in terms of rankings or like how important. I like the idea if you have to qualify for the tournament, that's fine, but I'm worried.
So
that,
this year it won't matter much because this is kind of like a trial. Eventually, they're going to have this event. Plus, there's going to be a couple more that not the top 8, but the other teams are invited to, and then there'll be other official events that you can play, and then it'll all get put together in an algorithm. I think they would like it to be that kind of like each game counts the same. So also your national championship games, if they're done in time, and as well as the official EUF tournaments, as well as they'll allow some third parties to have sanctioned events that will count towards it, and they'll just put it into one big algorithm. And if you've played a minimum number of games, you'll get counted, and then bids to the EuCF will be determined that way. That's the eventual goal, but they're going to start by at least hosting these events and then eventually trying to push that forward and forward to eventually be able to phase out the EuCRs. Sean, I don't know from a UK perspective what you think about this, because I mean the UK probably, we're going to get into your season, which is evolving at least to how it's going this year. Given what a UK season looks like, some people are saying that if the EUF puts together a regular season, that could harm countries that have their own regular seasons and kind of gets in the way. How do you see this from a GB perspective as probably one of the most mature and developed ultimate countries in Europe? Well, not really in Europe, but we kind of still invite you.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because if you're taking the top teams out of any country and putting them into a European league, it's the question of does it harm development for those countries, and is that then become a closed shop? And teams like Alba, for example, who have obviously come out of mixed teams and come into the Open Division and finished 4th in the UK last time round, and are doing well this time round. Would a team like that be able to get into this top division? How long would that take? Would it limit opportunities? So it makes it difficult from that perspective. And like you say, the UK has a really good club scene certainly in Open and mixed, and in women's. I think if you're taking Iceni and Bristol as just 2 examples out of that, you're really starting to look at a much smaller division. You're really starting to limit the amount of opportunities that those women lower down the draw have to play against women that they can kind of aspire to be like. And I think it starts to really potentially damage the division, to be honest with you, damage the development, even in countries like the UK, where we have a pretty developed scene, like you say. In countries like, where there's 1 or 2 teams that are the dominant teams, and then there's not much elite level depth below that, I really would question how much that would affect those places. So I'm not a huge fan at first blush, but obviously I'm sure there'll be proposals, there'll be ideas, there'll be ways to try and mitigate that. But I think even for us, it would be pretty detrimental.
Yeah. On the first point, where like, could a team like Alba get in? From what I understand, they won't be invited to the EUF official events, but the UK nationals results will count. The UK tour results would also count, I guess, and they could play other sanctioned events. And so everybody's going to start from more or less an even ranking, although that's still debated exactly how that's going to work out. So they did one of the goals when they were putting a system together was to make sure that any team, yes, of course, if you did well the previous year, you'd get invited to bidder events. So maybe you're a bit of a leg up on your probability of getting in, but still every team should be able to climb the ladder relatively easily. I don't know if that'll happen. Yeah, that's one of the goals of the system, but whenever you put a system together in real life, there can be unforeseen stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's tough. And like you say, I'm sure there's been things put in place exactly like the things you're talking about. But when things get put in the real world, there's always spanners that end up in gears somewhere, and things don't always work exactly the way that the people who designed them intended to. So obviously, you look in every sport at the moment, and there's all this development about trying to get a kind of central group together of the best teams to make sure that we definitely have the best teams together. It's happening in sports all over the world. So it's kind of King Canute trying to turn back the sea, trying to turn it down. But hopefully there's a way there that they can make it nice and equitable for everyone.
We will see. Okay. Next event on the calendar, also interesting, as this was news to me. I knew that they were going to try this UF Elite Invite because I was talking to them when they were talking about the transition in the next few years of what was going on. But I did not know that they were planning to have a European Ultimate Masters Club Championships on April 29th to May 1st. So we announced before on the last podcast, I think, that the World Masters Ultimate Club Championships were confirmed. Those are going to be in Limerick from June 25th to June 2nd. So that's like a whole week-long tournament. April 29th to May 1st is just a bit of a long weekend, so not a full week. But so they still haven't decided location, but they're going to have a European, just for the European clubs to do that. What I'm guessing this is going to basically be, in the end, is that all the teams that want to go to World Masters clubs are going to use this as kind of a preparation event. So if you're a Masters Club team, it looks like you actually have a couple pretty nice events set ahead for you. So maybe me and Sean will see each other on the fields at one of these or both of these events. Yeah, Liam, you I remember we were talking before the podcast. You were quite shocked to hear about this development by the UF.
Yeah, I guess obviously have an interest in the Masters scene next year for obvious reasons. And I was slightly worried when he said to me, and I was like, mate, is this going to be a bad thing? Is this going to take teams away? Is it going to divide money or something like that? But then once you told me the dates and I thought about it, it's actually probably makes a nice Masters season together, because like any team that's going to go to Worlds, they're going to go to a warm-up tournament. At least most of them are. So this would be sounds like the perfect one. It works well with our schedules. So yeah, I'm actually delighted to hear about it. Hopefully people won't injure all their calves. There'll be some old people left to play when it comes around to Limerick.
Yeah, that I think the money thing, don't worry about that with Masters teams. It's more that if they have another tournament, are they all going to get injured and not be able to play Worlds? That's the bigger worry, I think. That makes more sense. So after that, the World Ultimate Club Championships in Lebanon, Ohio, and Cincinnati, basically. And then the EUCRs and the EuCF. So no other big surprises there. Just got a text from Boris. So you guys have to keep this to yourself because we're recording this on Monday, but it's not going to go out till after July 1st. Apparently the EUF will be announcing on July 1st that, yes, according to the Belgian government and everything, we are full steam ahead for EuCF. So we're going to announce that in the podcast here. Keep that to yourself until Thursday, but yeah, looks like we're going to have it. Looks like it's going to happen. Unless, of course, this Delta variant or something gets way out of hand and probably cancels it in the end. Maybe the UK won't be able to come. That would be weird. We'll see what happens. But yeah, EuCF's going to happen. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Very exciting. Very exciting. I'm glad. Did you get more detail on how like their secret council meeting went down or whatever? I really want to go in those Bruges council meetings. That's it'd be great.
So let's see. All Boris has told me was that, if you're releasing this after July 1st, then yes, you can confirm that the organization is going ahead as planned within the current measures taken by the Belgian government. So apparently the government said you can do this and it's all good, but no hidden inside meetings of the different blood oaths they have to take in those Bruges City Council meetings.
Yeah. I wonder, is EBUCC going to happen? We haven't heard from them, have we yet?
Oh yeah, because this was an EUF calendar, and EUF has nothing to do with the beach stuff. But I'm guessing if they can put it out, they'll put it out. I mean, they're itching to put a tournament together, but
yeah,
would be nice. That's in earlier September, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it's the 15th and 16th, or 14th to 16th. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I hope. They've been quiet enough in the beach camp. No sounds coming from the sand people.
And I did hear from Ted, who told me that the only thing that he knew that was a bit weird is that they've been asking countries about bids, and apparently that will be released some point soon, but they're trying to figure out which countries want which bids to start with. And one thing I did hear is that Latvia, who Salas Bills were the mixed champions at the last EuCF in 2019, they've decided to go back to open. So they want to go with their open team. So the champions from the last division are not going to be there this time. So that's interesting. They always like to switch things up there. All right. So I think that'll do it. We'll go to a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll be with Sean, and we'll talk about the real reason we brought you here is to talk about UK Ultimate. We mentioned on the podcast before a little bit about.
I'm sorry.
Did something? What?
It's
You don't like that?
It's a penalty shootout
penalties.
between France and Switzerland.
Oh, it's penalty shootout.
And Switzerland, the keeper just saved Kylian Mbappe's penalty, and Switzerland just beat France
Switzerland just beat France.
Jesus Christ.
in a penalty shootout. Mbappe
Jesus.
just missed.
Oof.
Oh.
That's going to be an interesting work day for me tomorrow.
I mean, they were such heavy favourites. They were such heavy favourites. I can't believe
Yeah,
they
they
lost.
were up 3-1, and like for 10 minutes to go, and it went like 3-3 or something.
They were heavy favourites for the
And
tournament,
now-
let alone that game.
Yeah, it went down to the last penalty there. Switzerland scored 5, and then France scored 4, and it was Mbappe, and
Jesus.
it was saved. So yeah, France out.
Wow.
See you later. This is
Mbappe didn't score. Mbappe didn't kick it in. He got
So,
No,
blocked.
it was a good save actually from the keeper. In fairness,
yeah, he hasn't missed it.
yeah.
Keeper saved it.
yeah. So,
All right.
but
Well, yeah, I work for a Swiss company on the French border, and so a lot of the people in my company are French, and some of them are Swiss. So there's definitely going to be some words tomorrow at work.
Yeah.
I'm sure. That's a very, and then the Czechs beat the Dutch, right? That was also a surprise for most
Yeah.
people, I think.
This is very good for my fantasy team also.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is good for my fantasy team. So yeah, I still have my wild card left from fantasy, so I can change up my team. Some others don't, so they're gonna be fucked now because a lot of people would have hedged their bets on France winning, so I didn't really. So yeah, this is great. On Switzerland, they've been pretty rubbish actually for most. I didn't even know how they got this far.
All right.
Yeah, see you later, France. Sorry.
See you later,
interrupt there.
France.
I think you should leave all this in and just
Yeah, I don't see why not. This is a European podcast. People will be interested to hear about the results from 4 days ago when this podcast gets released, I'm sure.
I should have been more excited. That's great. Honda Swiss.
It's Hop Suisse, isn't it? Hop Suisse, something like that.
Hops, so yeah.
Hop Swiss. Ooh, no, it was a good save. Good
It's also Liam's. I thought you were just yelling because we were going to talk about UK Ultimate and you hate the UK so much that you're just like allergic to starting a conversation on our podcast about that.
yeah. No, Sean's in the Peugeot again. No. How was the episode of Made in Chelsea? That's what I want to know.
I assume it was terrible. I don't know anything about it, but I've been banished upstairs as well.
Sure you don't.
Well, I've been banished upstairs because it was
Sure you
Love
don't.
Island today, so I'm avoiding
yeah?
that now.
Wow. I'm trying to think you don't actually have a girlfriend and you just like keep making excuses that she's away
Yeah, I just
somewhere.
turn on reality
Yeah.
TV in another room, and I'm like, oh, I can't go in there because the reality TV's on.
It's a long con,
exactly.
Liam. It's very specific long con. All right. So yeah, so we had Sean on here to talk about the structure. So UKU starting something a bit weird. I'll just quickly recap the main idea. Top 6 teams from each club division, men's, mixed, and women's, or I think you guys probably call it open. Open, mixed, and women's. Top 6 are going to play a round robin structure where the top 3 of those go directly to nationals. Then the rest of the teams play basically a bracket elimination structure. And then the kind of top 3 from the cup in some way will play against the bottom 3. No. The top 2 from the cup make it directly in. Then the next 3 have to play a playoff with the bottom 3 of the league, blah, 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 blah. Eventually you get 8 teams to play nationals. So things have started off. So why don't we go through, well, I guess first of all, let's talk about general things, reactions to this new league, this new season. Maybe your personal reactions, and also, you got your ear to the ground in the UK. How are people responding to this new season? We had the Scots on our podcast to give their opinions. they obviously have some issues with the travel and all that, and especially the issue that they had to start practicing much later than everybody else, and how that might be a bit unfair. But what are the general impressions right now, and how's it going?
I think the first impression is that you talk to pretty much anybody, and while I've obviously spoken to people who like it and people who don't like it, the first thing that everyone says is it's great to be playing competitive games again, and not just scrimmages against people who are down the road from you, in a local park, and you have to stand 3 meters away and all that kind of stuff. It's great to be going to games and knowing that they actually mean something, and you actually have to put in effort and talk about tactics and all that kind of stuff, which we haven't had to do for 2 years now. So that is the first overriding impression. Everyone's just really, really glad to be playing games that matter and doing stuff that we all love doing again. There's definitely people who have differing views. I think you speak to some of the league teams, and for them, while the travel is obviously a real problem, the part of the good thing with the tournament is the utility of it in getting loads of games in one weekend, whereas now lots of people having to travel 3-4 hours each way just to play 1 or 2 games and then they're going home. There's obviously issues with that. But a lot of the people that I've spoken to who are in the league are saying, we know we're pretty much guaranteed a decent game. That we're playing against one of a roughly similar standard. There's been a couple of fairly one-sided results, but overall they've been fairly competitive. And then people in the cup, it's people playing against teams that you don't often have to play against. Like my team has played against a team that we haven't played in quite a long time, several years. And you're playing against people that you haven't seen in a while, teams you haven't ever had any experience of playing against. So that's definitely been useful as well. But I think the real things at the moment is the travel aspect, like you say, for Scottish teams in particular and teams in the north, because the whole division at the moment is quite southern heavy. It's been pretty onerous for them, I think. Especially the Scots, given the coronavirus restrictions you mentioned. It's been different in Scotland, so they were about a month behind us. So the first 2 weeks of the structure, none of the Scottish teams played. So there's that. And then there's also, I think, a lot of the cup teams, particularly those ones that are among the stronger cup teams, have a feeling that they haven't been afforded the same favour as the league teams. Like they have to play single knockout stuff where if they have a bad game, they're out. Whereas these league teams who are, particularly at the bottom of the open and mixed leagues, the teams at the top of the mixed cup and open cup are pretty roughly similar standard. But obviously the league teams get to play games that don't necessarily matter as much because they're not single knockout. So there's definitely been some sour feeling in some corners. I think the fact that there's 2 teams in the league that have declined their place to nationals already. So they've already said even if they win the league, they're not going to nationals. That I think has also raised some eyebrows, particularly in the mixed division, because there's been teams who could take that spot. So Mighty Hucks have already declined their place to nationals, and there's definitely some discussion of would that place have been better served going to a team who would be competing for that nationals place. Someone like, obviously it's a second team, but Smog 2 went to Euros last time around. They look very strong this time. There's teams like Cambridge and Oxford who also look pretty good. Cambridge won 15-1 in their first round game, so they're clearly pretty talented. The women's division, there's a team that declined their place as well. That's Smog Women. But the women's division, I think, they had fewer teams until the Mixed Cup kind of had their first round of knockouts, and then some more women's teams came in. So I think it's less controversial there. But yeah, so there's as there would be for any kind of new system, there's definitely detractors. There's people who have issues with it, but there's definitely positives. And I think the UKU have done a really good job of setting it all up and getting a structure ready for everyone to play again. So there's complaints, but I mean, end of the day, we're all very happy to be playing again.
Why did Smog 2 not get invited to the league, given that they were runners-up? Was it just that they only wanted 1 team per club, even though Smog 2 were that strong? Or do you have any clue why the UKU chose that?
I do not know why they chose it. I know that there was discussion about who should be going into that into that league, and like I said, Mighty Hucks were very clear from the outset. Their team is made up of Devon, Clapham, Iceni players. There was no chance they were ever going to be taking their place at nationals. And so they made it very clear from the outset that if they get in that league, they won't be taking the place at nationals. But the decision was made to take Hucks because, to be fair to them, Hucks have been one of the best mixed teams in the country. They just don't play postseason. So I don't know. I don't know is the answer. It's a good question.
Yeah. All right. So let's
big
go ahead,
big question. Liam. Yeah. How are the Northern Ireland teams doing so far in the league?
So far, they have not lost. So far, so good for the Northern Ireland teams.
Just kidding. We all know everyone in the UK doesn't give a shite about Northern Ireland. So
And do the Northern Ireland
certainly not
teams,
in UKU.
do the Northern Ireland teams play in the IFDA championships?
Yes, of course, because we let them. But technically, they're not in our country because you won't give them back. But ironically,
You won't give them.
Hey, Liam, I'm a
you
dual
won't give them
citizen here.
back.
I'm a
But you
dual
won't let
citizen
them
here.
play.
I don't own them. I'm with you.
Okay, you can be a plastic paddy, I guess.
I'll take it.
What was the other thing I was going to say? I haven't seen too much media coverage. I basically just like see scores on Instagram. It's like 15-4 to someone else. I'm like, is that it? Is that all we're getting? Just like
I can't even
Instagram
follow the
posts?
there's not even like a league table like that I can see how teams are doing. Seems weird to have a structure that matters throughout the whole year, but not any way to follow it.
That is definitely the other huge problem that we've been seeing. Obviously, if you go into a tournament, you can get cameras set up there and you can get some commentators down there and all that kind of stuff. But because people are playing, Oxford's games have been played literally in a park, like at times, like just a public park. So there's no way we can get any media infrastructure down there. So a lot of it is, we've had a few streams on phones, which as you can imagine is not the best. We've had a few people taking highlights of games and putting that online, but then you've got to listen to those people commentate and, Hoagie's up and down on that one. So, and then we've just got following the scores that people send in. So it's really pretty difficult to follow. I definitely get that. I think some people
Does
on
the
Reddit,
UKU not know how to use Google spreadsheets? It's a great tool. You can put together
their Google spreadsheets,
a way to just put
the Google spreadsheets is there for the cup draw and everything. So you can monitor exactly how the draw has been done and who you have and where the games are going to happen and what time the games are going to happen, but nothing about
not the
collecting the
league table.
scores. No. So some people on Reddit have put that together and you can find it on there, but that's about it, to be honest. Nothing official.
Okay. Well, that's what we have you here for. So I hope you've accumulated most of the knowledge of stuff. So let's go through division by division and see how things are going. We'll start in the league. So let's do mixed league. Has any maybe tell us the 6 teams there, and have there been any surprises in some of the matchups and what you have to look forward to the rest of the season?
So the mixed league is Reading, Smog, both went to Worlds in 2018. So obviously 2 long-standing good teams, Glasgow and Birmingham. And then there's Deep Space, who went to Euros in 2019, and aforementioned Mighty Hucks. So those are the 6 teams. So far, we haven't seen anything out of Smog or Glasgow. Glasgow were supposed to play against Smog, but that got cancelled because of a coronavirus contact within the Smog squad. So we haven't seen either of those teams play at this point. But there's not been any surprises, really. Reading have won 2 games from the 2 games that they've played. Hucks are 1-1, having lost to Reading. Deep Space and 1-1, having lost to Reading, and Birmingham at the moment without a win. But that's going largely as I think everyone thought it would. Once Smog start playing, I'd be surprised if they didn't win that league. But so far, no surprises in the mixed league.
The Deep Space Reading game, not a surprise, because I think that last time Deep Space did better, at least qualified for Euros, and Reading didn't, as far as I know. So is that,
That's
or
true.
is
They
Reading
didn't-
a bit taking it more seriously, given that it's like kind of World's preparation time now?
Exactly. Reading were focusing on other divisions. They had some open women's players playing in those divisions rather than mixed, but they've said already that their focus is mixed in this rotation. They're trying to go for mixed worlds again. They've got one of their captains, Ryan Coons, is on the Clapham squad, but has already said his focus is Reading. So he's training with Clapham, but playing mixed with Reading. So they look strong this year. They've got a few changes from 2018, but kind of the skeleton of the team is still pretty similar, and they look good.
You still favor Smog in that?
I would,
matchup,
yeah, I'd still favour
yeah.
Smog. I mean, Smog's women, they've added a few new women. Rachel Naden from the GB women's team, Alice Hansen from the GB women's team. They've brought Rachel Turton back, who was a GB mixed player. She lives in Scotland now. But
Does she play Ultimate anymore? I thought she was just doing disc golf now.
doing it all now. She's going to start guts at some point soon, I bet. But probably be great at that too. But yeah, she's with Smog. So their women are outstanding, and their men are pretty good. They've got a couple of guys back from Chevron. So I'd say Smog are the favourites, but I think those 2 teams are both look really good for this season.
All right. So let's and this like coronavirus stuff. Does it look like they're going to be able to start playing this next weekend, or?
Yeah, they should be fine from the sounds of it. So Smog played against Leeds in kind of a friendly, to be honest, and one of the Leeds people tested positive. The Smog team will return negative tests, but they just have to quarantine. So it sounds like everything's on track to get started again when they're allowed to.
We will see. All right, let's move to the women's division in the National League.
Mm-hmm. So there we've got Bristol and Iceni and Sick, all 3 teams, again, who went to Cincinnati in 2018. Then we have Scram, who are the women's version of Alba. I know you had them on your podcast as well. And we have the women from Smog, We've already said they've declined their place to nationals, but they're here as well, and definitely are not going to bring the quality down in this division there. I expect them to do well. And then we have Red, who are a team from Leicester. So Red have been kind of a team that's been working their way through the rankings over the last few years. They started out fairly low down, to be honest, but over the last few years, they've really developed as a Geo team and have brought in some pretty talented young players and have kind of snagged that last spot, which is very much up for grabs in the Women's League. So far, they have played Bristol and Iceni, pretty much the two most difficult games they can get, and they have not scored that many points. But I've talked to their captains, and they definitely say they're enjoying it, learning a lot. So, that's great. And then SICK have also played both those two teams as well. They played against Bristol Iceni and have lost both as well. So Bristol Iceni, 2 wins from 2. SICK and Red, 2 losses from 2. Again, Scram, Scottish, so they haven't played, and Smog, we haven't seen them because of the coronavirus contacts. So those two have.
How close were the SICK games against Bristol and Iceni? Because I know people talk about SICK as being kind of like, Iceni and Bristol, I think most people think are the top 2 kind of teams, and SICK's kind of close to that region and can sneak in there from time to time. But how are things going this year for the second team out of London?
So it was 15-5 Bristol against SICK and 15-8 Iceni against SICK. I'm told that the Bristol game, I wasn't there to watch it, but it was a game where there was a lot of close points with a lot of turnovers, and Bristol came out pretty much on top on every single one of those points. So there was definitely some points that could have gone either way. But obviously 15-5 and 15-8 is not hugely close. I think SICK are kind of treating the early part of the league of trying to develop this squad together. They have a lot of new faces. There's been some people who've stopped playing, some people who've moved away, so they still have some work to do, but they still seem pretty positive. I talked to their captain the other day, and Rupel's pretty positive about the season at this point. Says they're learning a lot, so we'll see how the rest of the season goes for them.
And when's the juggernaut matchup of Iceni Bristol happening, and what are your thoughts about that one?
Iceni Bristol is happening this weekend. So Iceni, Bristol and Smog are all getting together in Birmingham, and they'll play a kind of a round robin between those 3 teams. And to be honest, I think those are the 3 strongest teams in the league. So it's going to be exciting. I would, at the moment, favour Bristol very slightly, but I think it's a really close game. I mean, Bristol have got the same kind of core they've had for a little while. They've added some experienced players. They've lost a couple of experienced players, but overall they're kind of similar to what we've seen. The people who are important, like Carla Link and Bailey Melvin Teng, both GB mixed players, are still around. Whereas Iceni have 10 new players this year. They've added a couple of really, really good players. Ellie Taylor was a GB mixed player who lived in Scotland. She's moved down to London. They've added Becky Thompson, who's going to play with GB Women in 2020 before that was cancelled. So their squad has been refreshed somewhat and looks a bit different to what we've seen before, but they both look really good. I think it's going to be really, really close. I'm looking forward to them.
What about this? I heard Spice beat Bristol's. Is that true?
That is true, yeah. Spice is a new women's team which is based around the Midlands and is largely under-24 women that played in Heidelberg. And they seem to be doing really well, doing a really good job of developing a new kind of team in the Midlands there. And they've played against Bristol, and they did win that game. I think Bristol were experimenting with lines and stuff. It was just after Bristol had beaten Red. So Bristol was experimenting slightly, but Spice did win, which is a great win. They played SICK very close. I think SICK won that by 2 or 3, so it was a close game. So Spice are in the National Cup, and I would think at this point are favourites to go to Nationals. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see them there. And it looks like they're setting themselves up to potentially be dark horses at World qualification. We'll see if they can get to the top 3 if that's in their ability, but they definitely look good.
All right, we'll talk World's predictions in the subscribers only segment a little later, but we'll get to that in a bit. But so let's finish off the league, then we'll go to the cups. So we have the Open Division. Tell us about the Open Division. Yeah,
so the teams in the Open Division are Clapham, Chevron, and Devon, all 2018 Worlds teams. Then you have Alba, who are obviously one of the best teams around at the moment, having been established a couple of years ago. And then you have Kapow and Emo. Emo are another team we haven't seen anything from. They have had a couple of coronavirus cases in their camp, so we haven't seen anything from them at the moment. They did lose a warm-up game before the season to a local team called Leamington Lemmings, who they had never lost to. I mean, I used to play for Emo, and those games are not usually close. So I don't know whether that was because Emo had a smaller squad because of these coronavirus contacts, but it's not necessarily a great sign for them. We'll see what they look like, but I'm not expecting them to trouble the top of the division. And then we have Clapham, who played one game against Devon and won 15-7, pretty comfortable. And then we have Alba, who played Chevron. I don't know if if you remember that they played at UK Nationals and it was a sudden death game in the quarterfinals with Alba ahead, and then Chevron came back. It was a sudden death game here as well, and Chevron came out on top. Alba had the disc to win, but couldn't put it in. Chevron won 14-13. I think Chevron brought a slightly smaller squad than usual there, and obviously Alba pretty early on in their season, but kind of augurs well for the season going ahead. I think those two teams are going to see each other again. It's going to mean a lot more next time. And then Devon have played not only against Clapham, but they played Kapow as well, and they won pretty comfortably in that one. I think there's a pretty clear top four here. I think Emo and Kapow are a little bit below the rest, but the top four, it's going to be good games between all of them, I think.
All right. Liam, any questions about the Open Division before we go to the Cups? At the top there? Well, I mean, we'll get into the whole speculation as to who we think the top three out of those top four are later on in the subscribers only segment, but anything else?
Nope.
No? Cool. All right, let's move on to the Cups. So, Mixed Division Cup. What's going on there? Anything special?
No, not really. The Mixed Division Cup was kind of more straightforward than the Open Cup. So the favourites won in pretty much all those matches. Some of the gaps were a bit surprising. Like I mentioned earlier, Cambridge beat a team from London called Geometrically Frustrated Magnets, 15-1. And GFM are a decent team. So the gap was a surprise, but the result wasn't really too much of a surprise. The only kind of upset that wasn't really an upset was Bristol played against Plymouth. Those teams are kind of supposed to be pretty even because of the seedings, but Bristol won pretty comfortably. So we have some teams there that you might have heard of, but largely it's the people who were favoured to go through who've gone through. So we have teams like Cambridge, who obviously were in Worlds in 2014, did really well there. They're playing against Oxford. We have Herd playing against Bristol, Thundering Herd, the team that I play for in London.
You're still alive.
Still alive. We played the team from Nottingham, but Bristol had a good win in the first round, so it's going to be a tough one. Smog 2, we talked about them. They have a local team from them called the Brown, who are a Newcastle team. I don't expect that to be too much of an issue for Smog 2. And then we've got Leamington Lemmings, the mixed side of the team that beat Emo, playing against Leesley's Leeds, who have been a lot of history in women's and open, but are focusing on mixed this year. So those are the quarterfinals, and they're happening in a couple of weeks.
Do you know if Smog is, because I think last time they just basically had split squads. They didn't really have a first and second team. Are they sticking to that formula, or are they more of a first and second team given the League Cup structure?
They have more of a first and second team. I've seen they announced their squads on Instagram, so we've all seen who's on which team. And though their second team is probably not as strong as their first team, their second team is still, really, really, really good. Particularly the women. I don't think they're not going to get many issues against people in the cup. And to be honest with you, I'd be surprised if anyone got within 5 or 6 points of them in this cup. They're very, very good.
All right. Now, I think there wasn't, I was trying to follow this, but there wasn't much of a women's cup early on. Is there a women's cup happening, or what's going on?
The women's cup is happening. They only had 3 teams who were interested early on, but then after the first division or the first round of mixed games happened, and some of those mixed teams are no longer in the cup, all those players are no longer roster locked. So the women who are playing for those mixed teams, some of them have gone over to the Women's Cup, so there's now 8 teams that are entered. The draw happened last week. So, and really, there's the London Masters team, which is like ex-SIC and Iceni players. They'll be really good. And there's Spice. They'll be really good. Those are the 2 best Women's Cup teams. Outside of that, there's a few new teams, a few kind of pulled-together teams. So we'll see how everyone looks. But the Women's Cup will be happening. There's 8 teams entered into that now.
Do you know if that London Masters team is willing to play nationals, or are they just playing the cup for fun?
Sounds like they're willing to play nationals. Whether they are willing to play Masters Worlds,
Euros,
all that kind of stuff, we're not 100% sure. But they're committed to this season. They get a very variable squad. It depends on what day you catch them, to be fair. But
I heard they beat Iceni in a friendly, right? At some point that happened.
They beat Iceni. It was 3 small games, so it was 3 games to 5, and so they just pieced those scores together for the final score. Okay. But they look good. They were moving the disc pretty well against Iceni. They have a lot of players who have played for Great Britain and have loads of experience. Some of whom haven't played in a little while, so it's good to see them back. But they're good. They'll be good. It just depends what their legs are like, if they've got enough people, because some games they've had 8 or 9, some games they've had 13, 14, so we'll see.
And are they and Spice on opposite sides of the bracket, or are they going to play in quarters accidentally and ruin the whole thing? We'll probably talk about the Open Division soon, but is something like that possible, or are they probably going to make it all the way to the end?
They're on opposite sides, so I expect to see that as the final.
Okay. All right, last division to talk about here is the Open Cup. Now here, I know a little bit about what's going on in that a few teams, I think, probably feel a little shafted by the way things were drawn up. Some teams that maybe even thought they deserved to be in the league are knocked out already before we've even gotten to quarterfinals. So maybe I think there have been a lot more games there. Maybe we don't need to go through every single result, but some of the more tragic exits so far you can go through, and then we can just talk about what the quarterfinals looking like.
I can't think about who you're referring to there, but basically Fire and Brighton were two teams that had a decent shout at making the league. They were the same kind of level as Emo and Kapow last time we saw those four teams play, but Brighton had a pretty big exodus of people from Brighton, so they were nowhere near the team that they were previously. They lost, but then they had a really difficult draw. They played...
Even with Hex? They still lost?
They still lost,
Are you?
yeah.
No, I don't know about that. I don't know if I believe that. That must be some conspiracy behind that.
Well, they were playing against Clapham Legends, who had hundreds of years of experience. So maybe it took hundreds of years of experience.
Yeah, but they weren't playing Hex, I'm sure. I'm sure Clapham Legends didn't play Hex.
They didn't, but listen, maybe that's the secret against Hex. You need to get 300 years of experience of how to play Frisbee to beat it. That's probably the way to do it. But yeah, tough draw for Brighton, and like I say, they weren't the team that we've necessarily seen before. And then Fire played against a team called Smashed, who are a new team featuring some of those Brighton players who finished uni in Brighton and have moved away. And Smashed they have a lot of like under 24 type players, young, athletic. From the sounds of it, they're very angry. The spirit from that game I hear was not the best. But Smashed beat Fire fairly comprehensively, 15-9, not really that close. Fire 2 had a better chance against some Brighton legends, but Fire 2 also lost 15-14, so Fire and Brighton both out of the cup at the first round. But there's still some good teams left in there, some kind of new teams. There's people like Clapham Legends who we haven't seen before. Smashed, as I said, they're a brand new team. And Bristol look really good. They beat Reading's Open team, so Bristol are looking strong in all divisions at the moment.
Was that a very strong Reading Open team, or was that like a kind of separate since they're focusing on mixed? I think you can play both now.
No, you can play both you could play both in the first round. You could have guests, but in the quarterfinals that they were in, you couldn't do that. And I think basically it was a decent Reading team.
Yeah, I mean Reading has a million people, so they don't need to have people play both. But
yeah, it certainly looked pretty good. But Bristol played really, really well, and I've seen their team and talked to their captain, and they look a good bet to do pretty well here. Better certainly than I expected at the beginning of the season.
And how's this Clapham Legends team looking? Like how high up can they challenge these top four teams if they make it up that high, or what do you think?
I talked to Magnus Wilson, who I'm sure both of you have heard of and know, and he says that they are another team where it depends week to week. They have some players who retired fairly recently. They have some players who retired less recently. They have 3 players that I've never heard of, and I've been playing 15 years. So it's interesting to see their squads. I think they are good enough to challenge a team like that for maybe a half. I don't know if they have the legs to be able to do it for a whole game, but we'll see. It's exciting to see all these amazing players come back and see what they've got left in the tank. So I'm sure they'll be really good.
All right. Okay, that does it. So yeah, that's what to expect. That's what we've seen in the UKU season and what to expect. If you're not an Ultiworld subscriber, definitely try and get that subscription in. We'll have Sean on for that subscribers only segment to talk about Worlds. But yeah, so let's say to wrap things up, looking at how this season has gone, maybe now we'll just from your media hat, how do you like this format maybe on a normal year? Do you think this is something that the UKU should consider doing going forward the way things have gone so far? Or do you think maybe, this was good for 2021, but when things are back to normal, let's go back to tour and regionals and everything like that?
I think the one thing this season has definitely been good for, I don't know what they're going to do, obviously. I haven't talked to Sai from the UKU about that. But one thing this has been good for is normalizing playing more local games and turning up and playing 1 or 2 games. And there's a separate thing that doesn't really count towards anything this year called the Challenge League. It's a lot of leagues, I know, but it's basically an ELO type system like they use in chess. So the intention for that, I believe, is moving forward, we'll go back to tour events, but all those games will then enter into the ELO rankings. But then the next weekend, you can turn up and play against a local team, and that will also count to the rankings. So all games that you play all year will count to rankings. And that means you have people who maybe can't afford to travel to these tour events or have children, so they can't spare a whole weekend. You can just have 2 games in a local park against a local team, and that counts to the rankings just as every other game does. So hopefully, normalizing playing some smaller level games, some local games, is a good thing for the development. It means people can access the sport that weren't able to do it if they couldn't go to weekend tournaments. That said, weekend tournaments are everyone who plays Frisbee likes weekend tournaments because you can pack a load of games in, you can see all your friends, you can get cameras down there. So I expect this to go back to a tour structure if the government.
You think that's what's going to happen?
If the government regulations allow, I think we'll go back to it. What do you
think about what you personally forget what's going to happen? What do you like if you were the god of UKU, or maybe just from a media perspective? I mean, I think one thing from the media perspective that's nice is it's kind of more of a storyline throughout the year, and that you can kind of follow with the league and the cup and all this stuff. But what are your thoughts?
I think you're right. The storyline's been quite cool, but to be honest, you still get the storylines from tour event to tour event, and I prefer the tour events. I think it's just you get more a sense of who these teams are rather than, because obviously at the moment we have no real common opponents. We don't know how good these teams are, where their players are fitting in, what roles they have. So I think you get a better sense of these teams from bigger events, and I prefer them. I think I'm certainly not alone in that. But listen, there's positives from the league, and I think it's been pretty good. But I don't expect it to be hanging around long, and I hope it doesn't switch to this system permanently.
All right. Okay, Liam, any other questions or thoughts for Sean before we move to the subscribers only segment?
Yeah, just one side note. I just want to add ha 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 to Fire of London and Brighton. I think it's important we all just mock them for a little bit. I don't think really nobody really cares. They lost. I kind of thought they would. That's all. That's all I have to add.
I mean, I guess the only other comment you have to add is that, it's really nice for all these UK teams now that Ireland can't be in the way to screw things up for world qualifications like you did 4 years ago. That's kind of a bummer, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll figure out a way to come back and screw them over, hopefully, in the future.
I'm sure.
Is that what this whole pandemic was about? Dublin Gravity won the women's division in the UK, so they're like, the UK's like, we got to figure something out. Let's put a Delta variant out there to make sure that the Ireland can't come.
Keep them all out, yeah.
Keep winning our championships. All right. Okay. Well, thanks, Sean, for coming on the episode again. If you want to hear about our predictions about what the UK teams are going to do in terms of Worlds qualification, become an LT World subscriber, and we'll talk about that in the subscribers only segment. But for now, I've been Ravi Vasudevan.
I've been Liam Grant, and we will eat.